The story of the millionaire and the beggar, a black man's journey to redemption. Under the glimmering skyline of New York, a grand mansion pulsated with life. Inside, champagne flowed like water. Laughter bounced off polished marble. But Marcello Santoro, the visionary billionaire behind this opulence, felt like a ghost in his own palace. The buzz of the elite dimmed as he caught sight of his son, David, standing by himself. His blue eyes, wide and hesitant, scanned the room, desperately searching for connection amid the superficial crowd. Tonight was supposed to be a celebration, yet the paintings that promised joy felt increasingly like prison bars. The laughter felt hollow, a stark reminder of the barriers he couldn't see. It was a contrast to David, who embraced silence like a protective cloak. He was autistic, familiar with shadows, but distant from the noise that echoed through the hall. And then she appeared. Out of nowhere, a girl with wild curls and a smile that cool. She had approached David, extending her hand, and to everyone's surprise, he took it. They began to dance. It was a dance beyond rhythm, beyond words. A blend of joy and innocence that sparked something deep inside Marcello. He watched as if witnessing a rare comet streak across the dark sky. David's tense shoulders relaxed as Lily twirled him around. The party around them faded. The elite lost their shine, overshadowed by this pure, unfiltered moment of joy. Tears stung Marcello's eyes. A release from the pressure built over years of success that felt more like a chain than a crown. Just as warmth enveloped him, she vanished. One moment she was there, the next lost to the crowd. Panic surged through Marcello. Who was she? Where did she go? The laughter returned, grotesque against the backdrop of his frantic thoughts. His heart raced as fear twisted like a knife in his chest. He couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than a coincidence. Desperate to uncover the truth, he plunged into the shadows of his own world, his opulent life spiraling into a maze of discovery. Whispers darted around him about corruption, about a powerful congressman tangled in dark dealings that chained the downtrodden like Lily. Just then, an unexpected ally stepped into his path. Jasmine, an impassioned lawyer with fierce resolve, had been tracking the web spun by that congressman. "You have the power to change things, Marcello. Use it," she urged, her voice steady and unwavering. Marcello felt the burden of his privilege pressed down on him. He stood at a crossroads, stick to his gilded cage, or fight for the girl who danced with his son. As he prepared for a pivotal press conference, uncertainty gnawed at him. Could he truly challenge his own circle? Would he find the strength to advocate for those without a voice? As the night fell over the city, emotions churned wee. The stakes were higher than ever, and time was slipping away. What happened to Lily? And how far was he willing to go to bring her back? Hey, before we continue with this incredible story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without prior notice. Take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you are still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content coming up. And since you're here, leave that powerful like that helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, from which city are you watching this? I love getting to know every amazing person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. As the city lights flickered outside, Marcello clenched his fists, fighting the storm of emotions swirling within him. He'd just witnessed the purest form of connection between David and Lily, and now she was gone. Marcello had to confront not only the injustices around him, but face the darkest corners of his own life. Jasmine's words echoed in his mind. "You have the power to change things." Could he really do something? The pressure built in his chest felt almost unbearable. Just then, his phone buzzed angrily against the marble countertop, snapping him out of his thoughts. It was a message from an unknown number. "We need to talk about Lily. Meet me now. His heart raced, a pulse of urgency propelling him forward. Who sent this? What did they know? Ignoring the whispers of disapproval from his guests, he found his way to the ornate entrance. Stepping into the crisp night air, the cool breeze calmed his racing heart, but a sense of dread accompanied him as he followed the directions on the screen. He arrived at a dimly lit alley, the neon lights of nearby bars flickering ominously. Lurking in the shadows was a tall figure, cloaked in mystery. As Marcello approached, he could see a familiar face, the local journalist, John, who had been digging into the congressman's notorious dealings. "You shouldn't be here, Marcello," John hissed, glancing nervously around. "This isn't safe. You need to go back." "Where's Lily?" Marcello demanded, feeling his veins pulse with fear. "What do you know?" "More than you can imagine," John said, lowering his voice. "There's something you don't see. She was never just a girl. It's much bigger than that." Before he could finish, a distant siren wailed, slicing through the tension. Suddenly, a van skidded to a halt nearby, its tires screeching against the pavement. Marcello felt a chill run down his spine. What was happening? The van doors swung open and masked figures spilled out. The world in that moment felt suspended, as if everything had slowed down. They were menacing, with the kind of presence that screamed danger. Marcello's heart raced wildly as they rushed toward him and John. Chaos erupted. Marcello stumbled back, trying to process the scene unfolding. The masked men grabbed John, and in the flash of a second, they pulled a gun, pointing it straight at him. "You won't talk again," one shouted, his voice dripping with authority. "Stop, please," Marcello shouted, fear clawing at him as he darted forward. "I can help! I can help you find her!" Before he knew it, he felt a sudden, excruciating pain shoot through his side. A sharp gasp escaped his lips. He looked down, horrified to see blood seeping through his tailored shirt. The chaos of shouts and screams intensified as he faltered, collapsing to the ground. Through the blurring vision, he caught a glimpse of John being dragged away, helpless and terrified. The last thing he could hear was the fading sound of sirens and a whispered promise in his ear. "You never knew who she really was, Marcello." In that moment, everything he thought he understood shattered around him, leaving only darkness. What had he stepped into? Who was Lily? And what did it mean that he was now ensnared in a web spun by unseen hands? The night stretched endlessly as confusion and dread watched over him, and in the depths of it all, he realized that his fight for justice had just begun. Marcello lay on the cold asphalt, the pain radiating from his side as chaos swirled around him. Darkness threatened to close in, but his mind fought back, scrambling for clarity. Where was John? The sirens wailing in the distance echoed in his ears, a haunting reminder that time was running out. With trembling hands, he pressed down on his wound, feeling the warmth of blood seeping through his fingers. Panic clawed at him. He couldn't let it end like this. Not now. He forced himself to look around, desperate for any sign of help. But in the shadows, everything morphed into blurred shapes. Between breaths, he caught glimpses of the masked figures dragging John into the van, his friend's protests muffled amidst the chaos. "No!" Marcello tried to rise, but agony shot through him like fire, knocking the breath from his lung. Then the world shifted. A piercing scream broke through the night, louder than the sirens, a scream that didn't belong to John. It was Lily. It was a sound of pure terror, raw and endless, echoing off the alley walls. The masked men jerked back, their focus splintering as they turned towards the source of the distressed cry. "Lily!" Marcello roared, squeezing his eyes shut, willing himself to push through the pain. Suddenly, he saw a flicker of movement. Lily, emerging from the shadows, her wild curls bouncing as she raced toward him. Her eyes, wide with fear, were pools of innocence, Yet there was something more, a fierce light that made his heart leap. "You shouldn't be here," she yelled, her voice cracking. "You need to leave." But before Marcello could understand, a single gunshot rang out, sharp and shocking. Time slowed, and the world around him faded. He turned his head just in time to see Lily stumble, clutching her shoulder where a dark stain spread. "No!" Marcello's voice exploded from his chest, a guttural scream that shattered the night. She fell to the ground, and everything else felt like it stopped. The masked men glanced among themselves, confusion breaking their menacing facade. One of them stepped forward, his eyes narrow and calculating. "She wasn't supposed to be here." "What do you mean? Who is she?" Marcello gasped, his heart pounding like a war drum. The man lowered his weapon, a smile creeping across his lips as he glanced back at Marcello, almost amused. "More than you know, billionaire." But it was the next words that ripped the ground from under Marcello. "Lily is the key to everything. She's not a beggar, she's the congressman's daughter." Time froze. The secrets swirling around him spiraled into a storm of confusion. The congressman's daughter? Everything, the dance, the connection, the danger, flashed before his eyes. A girl with an innocent smile, caught in a world of corruption and power. The masked men turned back to the van, the moment shifting. "Get her out of here!" one barked, urgency crackling through the air like static. "No!" Marcello screamed, rising against the overwhelming pain. He fought to push through the darkness enclosing around him. "You can't take her!" But before he could move, the night erupted in chaos. More sirens blared, lights broke through the alley, illuminating the faces of the masked men. They exchanged panicked glances, and just as quickly as they arrived, they were gone, vanishing into the shadows with John and Lily. His heart raced. The truth shattered all his understanding, a web of lies and deception, intertwined with lives he never knew he was a part of. In the stillness that followed, Marcello pressed his hands against the ground, gasping for breath, the weight of realization crashing over him like a tidal wave. Lily was not just a girl. She was the bridge between his world and the darkness he never wanted to face. He felt the pressure building, the urgency of the moment, pushing him to act. As the rush of sirens grew closer, he lay back down, a mix of dread and determination flooding through him. He had to find her. But how? The real fight was only just beginning, and somehow he would have to bridge the gap between his gilded life and the shadows that closed in around them. Marcello lay on the cold asphalt, struggling to keep his eyes open as darkness threatened to envelop him. The rush of sirens and the fading sound of chaotic footsteps buzzed around him, mixing with the distant groans of sirens. "I need to find Lily." The thought pulsed through him like a drumbeat. Fear bit at his insides as he clutched his side, feeling the warmth of his blood trickling between his fingers. He took a shaky breath, wishing he could find a way to wake up from this nightmare. The darkness inched closer, smothering his resolve. But as he thought of Lily lying helpless, he felt the stir of urgency rush back. He had to get up. He had to do something. Suddenly, a figure appeared, silhouetted against the flashing lights of the approaching police cars. It was Jasmine, her face a mask of panic and determination. "Marcello, what happened?" she shouted, rushing to his side. "Lily, they took her. We have to—" "Shh! Just hold on." She pulled out her phone, frantically tapping as she spoke. "Help is on the way. Just stay with me." Marcello fixed his gaze on her, searching for strength in her eyes. "You don't understand. They were masked men. They said she's the congressman's daughter. We need to—" Before he could finish, a scream sliced through the night. It was loud, echoing off the buildings, a scream that twisted his gut. "That's not Lily," he gasped, fear squeezing his throat. "What is happening?" Jasmine's phone buzzed violently in her hand. She glanced at it, her expression shifting from panic to shock, her breath catching. Oh my God, no. What is it? Marcello pressed, his voice trembling with dread. It's your father. Her hands shook as she read the message. He's been. Suddenly, a sharp blast tore through the air like thunder crashing in the night. Marcello's heart dropped as he processed what he heard. Another shot? Panic surged back. But this time, it wasn't Lily. It was the gunshot that echoed from deeper within the alley. Jasmine, we have to go, he urged, momentarily pushing through the pain. Just then, a bright flash lit up the alley. A figure emerged, the same masked man from before. Get away from him, he roared, pointing a gun directly at Jasmine. Desperate, Marcello shouted, No, please. But it was too late. Jasmine turned sharply, the shock on her face morphing into something unreadable. She raised her hands abruptly, almost casually, as if she had practiced this moment 1,000 times. Wait, she said, her voice calm and steady, an icy contrast to the chaos surrounding them. You don't want to do this. We can help you. Just let him go. The masked man hesitated, his grip faltering. Marcello blinked, confusion washing over him. What was happening? Then, Jasmine stepped forward, lowering her voice. You know who I really am. We can make a deal. Marcello felt the ground drop beneath him. A deal? What did she mean? In that instant, everything shifted. Was she part of this? Before he could gather thoughts, Jasmine's expression became sharp and fierce, revealing something Marcello had never seen in her before. I can help you find her. You know the power I have, but you have to trust me. A jarring realization dawned within him. What had he been missing? Everything around him seemed to blur. This was no longer just about Lily. It was larger, deeper, and far more dangerous. Jasmine took another step forward, her eyes locked onto the masked man. You already need me. We both know this. The masked man remained still, trapped in indecision. As sirens roared closer, time slowed. Marcello's chest tightened. Could he trust her? Or had he fallen into a trap deeper than the darkness he fought against? With one last desperate look, he called out, Jasmine, what do you really want? The alley fell silent, waiting for her answer. But in that heartbeat, something shifted irrevocably. The lines blurred, and Marcello's world spiraled into chaos. The alley hung in a thick silence, the kind that chilled the air and tightened the throat. Marcello's heart hammered furiously as he waited for Jasmine's response. The tension gripped him. The masked man held his gun steady, but for a few precious seconds, hope flickered in Marcello's chest. Could Jasmine really be the key? Could she save them both? But just as thought began to spark a fragile optimism, a loud crash broke through the stillness. The ground shook, and a massive explosion erupted from the direction of the street, followed by a blinding flash of light. The sound roared like a wild animal, cutting through the night, sending debris flying. Marcello instinctively shielded his eyes, squinting against the blinding glare. As the light faded, confusion swirled like a storm. Dust drifted in the air, obscuring his view. Shouts echoed as people ran in all directions, panic erupting like a wave. Marcello struggled to sit up, heart racing, but pain from his wound shot through him, grounding him in reality. He looked back at Jasmine, but she had vanished into the chaos. Jasmine! He cried, his voice hoarse. He tried to scramble to his feet, his vision still hazy from the explosion's shock. Everything felt surreal. He fought through the pain, shouting her name, desperate for any sign of her. Then, something caught his eye. Out of the smoke, a figure emerged, moving with a determined urgency. Marcello squinted harder, his heart sinking as he recognized her through the haze. It was Lily, but she was different now, her wild curls untamed, her eyes blazing with a fierce defiance he hadn't seen before. Marcello, she yelled, her voice echoing against the alley walls. You need to get out of here. This isn't what you think. Lily, what? He gasped, struggling to comprehend. Just then, the masked man shouted, his voice booming through the chaos. "You shouldn't have come back, girl. This was never supposed to happen." Lily stood tall, unyielding in the face of danger. "You don't know me. You've underestimated all of us." Her expression flipped. A mix of fear and anger, igniting something fierce within her. Then, everything shifted, like a jarring scene change in a movie. In that moment, the man pushed the gun away from Jasmine's direction and turned it towards Lily. "Get away from him!" Marcello's breath hitched. "No, don't!" But Lily stood, unflinching. "If it has to be me, you'll have to kill me first." The masked man hesitated, planning to strike. But before anyone could react, a gunshot rang out, a single crack that echoed like thunder. Time froze. The alley went silent. Then everything snapped back into a cacophony of chaos and confusion. "Lily!" Marcello screamed, tears stinging his eyes as he realized she had been hit. She stumbled back, crumpling to the ground, her hand clutching her shoulder where crimson seeped through her fingers. No! He'd never felt anything like it. The weight of fear crushing his chest as he rushed to her, pain forgotten. But then, her eyes locked onto his, and a faint smile crossed her lips despite the blood. "You've got to remember," she gasped, her voice barely a whisper. "Lily, what are you? Remember who I am." The urgency in her voice surged through him. But something else flickered, something deeper. Revelation. In that moment, the world tilted. A sudden realization cracked him wide open. Lily wasn't just a victim, she was someone important. But how? What had she meant? Before he could process further, sirens wailed again, and more lights flooded the alley. The masked man, now distracted by the approaching police, retreated into the chaotic dark. Time felt suspended. A torrent of emotions swirled within Marcello, confusion clashing with desperate hope. But Lily's voice still echoed in his mind. Remember who I am. Was she just a beggar? Or was she linked to the darkness surrounding the congressman? The pieces scattered around him began to form a picture, but he was too panicked to see it clearly. As he knelt beside her, Lily's eyes began to drift. You need to stop him, Marcello. Before that... The words faded, and just like that, the light in her eyes began to fade. In that fractured moment, everything spun and twisted around him, leaving Marcello grappling with questions that could unravel everything he thought he understood. What was the truth? Who was Lily really? And as he felt her slip away, he found himself standing on the edge of a terrifying revelation, one that could change everything. Marcello knelt beside Lily, heart pounding as the warmth seeped from her wound. Stay with me, Lily. You have to hold on. Tears blurred his vision, panic twisting within him. Her breath was shallow, each gasp like a knife stabbing at his resolve. Marcello, her voice broke through the chaos, faint but clear. You have to... Suddenly the roar of engines drowned her out. Multiple police cars skidded to a halt at the alley's entrance, lights flashing. Uniformed officers spilled out, drawing their weapons, eyes scanning for threats. The tension shifted like a bowstring pulled too tight, ready to snap. "Get away from her!" one officer shouted, aiming his gun at Marcello. "No, it's not like that," Marcello cried, hands raised high, blood dripping down his sides. "She needs help!" Over the cacophony, Lily smiled faintly, her eyes fluttering. "I'm so sorry," she breathed, her strength fading. But then, everything shifted. The officer who had shouted stepped forward, confusion spreading across his face. "Stay back, I'll..." Then it happened. A thunderous boom echoed from the street. A truck crashed through, tires screeching, metal grinding against metal. It slammed into the police cars, sending officers tumbling. Time seemed to stretch. In the chaos, Marcello felt a wild rush of adrenaline. The masked figure reappeared, gun drawn, yelling, "Get down!" His eyes darted between Marcello and the officers, falling like dominoes. "Lily!" he shouted again, panic piercing through him anew. But the chaos erupted. Screams, shouts, a fierce mix of voices rising all around them. But then, amidst the disaster, something else pierced through the chaos. A figure stepped from the wreck. A woman in a sharp suit, hair slicked back, holding a mic. She stood confidently, the wreckage and violence swirling around her like a storm, her expression unyielding. "Stop everything," she commanded, her voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. Officers hesitated, dumbfounded. The masked man faltered, grappling with her presence. "Who are you?" a cop blurted, uncertain but alert. The woman turned, locking eyes with Marcello. It was impossible, yet undeniable. It was Jasmine. But this Jasmine was different, a stark intensity in her gaze that made him shiver. "Lily," Jasmine's voice was firm, "you can't let him go, not now. You're more than what you think you are." Marcello's breath caught. What did she mean? How did she know Lily? More than what I think? Lily's words were barely a whisper, faint and fragile. "Lily, fight!" Marcello begged, desperation clawing at him. Then Jasmine pointed, locking her gaze on the masked man. "They took what was never theirs. You think you can control this? You're wrong." Suddenly the masked man raised his gun. The Jasmine stood her ground, face unwavering. "You're too late. It's not just yours to steal." Before Marcello could process this new unraveling, the scene exploded, a collision of chaos. The masked man turned to run, but not before he shouted one last secret into the fray. "You think you're the only one with powerful ties. You've all been played." "What?" Marcello screamed, confused. Everything spiraled faster. Who was Jasmine? Who was Lily really? And in that instant, with sirens wailing and chaos erupting everywhere, Lily's hand fell limply from Marcello's grip. The vibrant light in her eyes flickered dangerously. The rage vanished, replaced by something colder. Rejection, fear, and pain. As Marcello rushed to grip her hand tighter, the world around him shattered. "No! Lily, please!" he cried as the darkness seeped in, turning sharp and bitter. But the biggest shock came next. Jasmine, staring hard at the masked man, turned back to Marcello, her face twisted with a secret she couldn't contain. "They're not just after her, Marcello. They want you too. You're not who you think you are." Each word struck him like a punch in the gut. A riptide of confusion swept through him, twisting his heart. Reality shifted under him. Lily was slipping away. The truth hung heavy in the air, the unrelenting darkness closing in like a vice. And just like that, Marcello found himself at the edge of a precipice, facing a truth he may have never wanted to uncover. What did Jasmine mean? Who was he really? As the sirens wailed louder and the world spun into chaos, Marcello grasped the fleeting reality. Everything he believed, everything he fought for, might not be real after all. He had to discover the truth. "Marcello, remember." Lily's final whisper hung in the air, trailing off into oblivion. He blinked, searching for clarity, but all he found was confusion, darkness, and a haunting question. What was he about to lose? Marcello knelt beside Lily, heart pounding as the last light flickered in her eyes. The world around him felt unreal, like a movie gone wrong. Whispers of sirens faded to a distant hum. Shadows danced and chaos reigned. He couldn't lose her. Not now. "Hold on, please. Help will be here soon," he called out, voice trembling as fear gripped him like a vice. But Lily's breath was shallow, and he watched a tear slip down her cheek, mingling with the blood on her dress. "Marcello." Her voice was barely above a whisper, and he leaned closer, willing her to fight. You have to understand it's bigger than us." "What do you mean?" His heart sank at the depth of her words. Before she could respond, a loud crash echoed behind him. The police, finally arriving, he turned. Desperate hope blooming amid the panic. But then Jasmine stepped closer, her wild-eyed determination jarring against the chaos. "Lily, you need to—" Suddenly, another gunshot rang out, another sharp sound that froze the moment. Marcello instinctively flinched, instinct screaming at him to protect her. But it wasn't aimed at them. It was aimed at Jasmine. With a swift motion, Jasmine pushed a nearby officer aside just in time. The bullet sped past her, and she stumbled, eyes wide with shock. "Marcello, get her out of here!" she yelled. But before he could process her words, more chaos erupted. The masked man had returned, fury mixing with desperation on his face. "You think you can just walk away? This is not over!" But in that moment, an unexpected figure appeared from the shadows. It was the congressman, eyes blazing with anger. "Enough!" he shouted, an authority that turned heads. "You don't know who you're messing with." Marcello's breath caught. The congressman? Here? Why? Amid the chaos, Lily's grip tightened around his hand. "Marcello, I'm scared. You have to believe me." Her voice trailed off, and he realized her strength was fading. "Lily, just breathe," he pleaded. But an overwhelming wave of fear washed over him. As the confrontation escalated, the congressman suddenly lunged toward the masked man. "Get away from her!" Their voices clashed, and just then, the entire world fell still, like the calm before a storm. Something shifted. "Who do you think you are?" the masked man spat. "You're just a scared little boy playing with fire." But as Marcello's focus shifted, something flickered in the congressman's eye, a flash of recognition. He turned slowly toward Lily, and horror washed over Marcello. The congressman knew her. No, that wasn't it. Lily. The man's expression twisted. "You're not just a girl. You're mine." What? Marcello's heart dropped, confusion twisting his gut. What did he mean? Suddenly, the pieces began to fall into place in a way that made Marcello's blood run cold. "Lily," he gasped, "you can't be— How?" But before she could answer, a gust of wind surged through the alley, followed by another explosion, this time from nowhere. Debris flew, chaos erupted again, and in the whirlwind, everything splintered. Amidst the smoke and confusion, Lily's face twisted in shock. "No, not again!" she cried out. But before another word escaped, a blinding light enveloped the scene. When the light faded, everything was different. The masked figures were gone, and the congressman stood rooted where he was, eyes wide, seeming utterly transformed. "Where is she?" "Oh," he shouted, voice trembling with fear. "I can't lose her again." "Lose her again?" Marcello whispered, feeling his chest tighten. Everything he thought he knew had crumbled. Jasmine turned, eyes flaring with anger and determination. "She's your daughter, isn't she? All this time." The truth cut through Marcello like shards of glass. Could it be? The emotions swirling within him shifted wildly. Betrayal, anger, confusion, pain. The man who had instigated so much chaos was connected in the most profound way. And yet, amid the confusion, another thought consumed him. If Lily was the congressman's daughter, what would that make him? A pawn in a game he didn't want to play? As the silence deepened, panic gripped Marcello. He felt the ground beneath him tremble. The tension in the air was thick, heavy with revelations. But before he could speak, shadows began to move again. An ominous presence creeping back, and he realized the fight was far from over. The stakes were impossibly high, and every second put them closer to total ruin. "Stay back," Marcello shouted, ready to face whatever came next. But the truth was far darker than he had anticipated. leaving him standing on the precipice of a revelation that might shatter everything he knew. Marcello knelt beside Lily, panic pulsing through him. The sirens drew closer, lights whirling in wild dance. Chaos stirred like a storm, but his focus narrowed. Lily's grip was weak, her breaths shallow. He could see the life fading from her eyes. "You've got to stay with me, all right?" His voice trembled, urging her to fight. But a coldness seeped into the air, heaviness shrouding them in uncertainty. As the world around him blurred, he felt a surge of determination. "Help is coming. Just hold on." Then Jasmine stepped forward. Her intense gaze cut through the shadows. "Marcello, we need to get her out of here." But before he could respond, a sound shook the air, a door bursting open behind them, flinging the alley into a frenzy. The congressman, shaking, stepped back into the light, his face twisted with rage and confusion. "Lily, no!" But as Marcello looked around, his heart dropped. The masked man had disappeared, lost in the tumult. Another figure emerged, this one clad in dark clothing, stepping out from the widening chaos. It felt like everything paused for a heartbeat. "What are you doing here?" the congressman demanded, his eyes darting to the strangers rushing into the alley. Then came another shouted command, voices intertwined. It was almost a howl in the night. "Clear out! This is a crime scene!" Firm hands pushed past Marcello, brushing against him as chaos spilled further into the alley. "Marcello!" Jasmine screamed. "Get her out of here!" But the urgency of her words was swallowed in another loud explosion. Smoke enveloped them, thick and choking. He turned back to Lily, terror washing over him. "Stay with me, please." But the soft flutter of her eyelids grew weaker. The sirens grew louder. In the confusion, he noticed shadows moving behind the congressman. Whispers filled the air, and the masked figure re-emerged from behind a dumpster with a gun raised. Chaos spiraling back toward danger. "Get down!" Marcello shouted, dropping beside Lily. But Jasmine lunged forward, steely confrontation igniting in her eyes. "You can't take her!" she yelled, moving with a fierce confidence that surprised Marcello. But in the flash of movement, something shifted. The masked man hesitated. Confusion crossed his face, a flicker of doubt. It was as if he recognized Jasmine. "Let her go!" the congressman shouted, but his voice tore through the tension like glass shattering. The masked figure's hand shook, uncertain. Then Jasmine took a deep breath, her determination unwavering. "You want to know the truth? Lily's more than you think. She's worth fighting for." Time hung suspended. Suddenly, Marcello felt it, a shift deep within the fabric of the air itself, a prickling chill running up his spine. The masked man was sweating. "You don't know what you're dealing with," he roared, voice fraying. "She's not safe." "Not safe?" Marcello echoed, a cold dread filling his bones. "What do you mean?" Before anyone could answer, the shadows grew angry, spinning in chaotic frenzy. A blinding flash erupted at the alley's end, and everything exploded, a wave of light swallowing them whole. When Marcello blinked, everything changed. He found himself somewhere different. The alley, the noise, the panic, they all dissolved into an empty space. The congressman and Lily were gone. No sirens, just silence. Then, in the blink of an eye, two figures appeared, familiar faces, yet shadowed by an eerie glow. It was his parents. The warmth of their presence felt surreal. Something deep rattled inside him. "Marcello," his mother whispered, her eyes shimmering. But instead of joy, it was sorrow that patched the air. "You have to understand. We did this to protect you." "Protect me?" His heart hammered. "From what?" But before she could answer, the vision blurred again, reality bending in an unpredictable twist. Lily's voice echoed around him, echoing off the walls. "Remember who I am. and suddenly shards of truth splintered into his heart. Everything he knew shattered. His past, his family, the very foundation of who he thought he was. A darkness gripped him. What were they hiding? And more importantly, what did he discover about himself? As the lights flickered and shadows danced, Marcello was left standing on the edge of a truth that felt like a knife's edge, ready to plunge into darkness. What lay ahead? Marcello stood frozen, heart pounding in his chest. The alley swirled around him, shadows flickering like lost spirits. The last piece of Lily's words echoed in his mind. "Remember who I am." What did that mean? His parents faded into the mist, leaving him alone with uncertainty and fear. The air felt heavy, charged with questions. Who was Lily? Who was he? The chaos around him turned into a distant rumble as he tried to summon clarity. But it hit him. The masked man. He had claimed that Lily wasn't just a girl. The truth clawed at Marcello. Was it possible that everything he had known was built on lies? Suddenly, the shadows shifted again, and he turned, feeling a jolt of fear. A blinding flash erupted ahead, and he shielded his eyes. The sound of shattering glass mixed with a low growl of thunder. Just as his heart began to race, the scene before him shook violently. A shockwave rolled through the air, knocking him to the ground. Marcello pushed himself up, dizziness clouding his vision. As he squinted into the now eerily calm alley, a figure emerged from the haze. It was a woman, cloaked in shadows, but radiating a fierce presence. At first, he thought it was Jasmine, but the air around her felt different, heavier, darker. "Marcello," she breathed, her voice echoing like a distant memory. "You have to listen." "What?" he rasped, confusion swirling in his mind. "Where's Lily? What's happening?" "Everything is about to change." She stepped forward, eyes piercing through him, as though reading his very soul. "The truth about your family and Lily. It's all connected." Before he could react, the ground lurched again. A booming voice screamed through the chaos. "No! Stop!" More flashes erupted, illuminating the darkness around them. Time fragmented. Marcello gasped as he saw flashes of Lily, the congressman, and then his mother. The woman before him stepped closer, her features sharpening against the chaos, and then his heart dropped into the pit of his stomach. It was his mother. "What?" Marcello stammered, chills crawling up his spine. You're supposed to be gone." "There are things I never told you," she pleaded, stepping into the light. "Things about Lily, about your life." "Why now? Why this?" His voice cracked, a flush of rage pouring into his words. The blurry memories felt like a tapestry unraveling. But then the moment shattered. A deafening roar sliced through the night. Marcello turned, eyes wide, as the masked man surged forward, gun drawn, pure rage igniting in his eyes. The world began to slow, and Marcello realized this wasn't about him. It was never just about him. Lily is part of this, whether you like it or not. "We all had our roles to play," the man screamed, echoing through the alley. "Roles? What roles?" Marcello shouted, desperation clawing at him. And just like that, the masked man lunged forward, a flash of metal slicing through the air. Marcello felt his heart drop, but suddenly, everything shifted again. In the blink of an eye, the scene exploded in blinding light, swallowing everything. He heard screams mixed with silence, felt the earth shake beneath him, and then silence. When Marcello regained his senses, he was no longer in the alley. He stood in a vast, empty space, nothing but questions and shadows around him. The connections between his past and present twisted like a dark web, leaving him gasping for answers. Was Lily really the key? And why did it seem like everyone was connected? A million strings pulling tight around him. The darkness wrapped around him, suffocating and thick. Had he stepped into a game far more dangerous than he had realized? In the void, one thought resonated louder than the rest. The world was collapsing around him, and before he could even comprehend it all, he felt a crushing weight of betrayal and fear. What if everything he understood crashed like a house of cards? "Marcello!" A voice cut through the silence, and suddenly he saw Jasmine reappear, face alight with urgency. "We have to find Lily. She needs us." But who could he trust now? As he stood on the edge of an unknown abyss, his heart raced. The pieces of the puzzle veered dangerously to the other side, and he could only wonder what awaited them. The dust settled as Marcello blinked, heart racing in his chest. The bright light dimmed, revealing a chaotic scene where the congressman stood, eyes wide and frantically searching. The masked man was gone, swallowed by the shadows. But the tension hung thick in the air. "Lily!" Marcello called, panic crawling up his spine. He turned to see her struggling to rise, her hand clutching her shoulder where blood blossomed. No, no, no. He rushed to her side, each step heavy with dread. "Marcello, I'm okay," Lily gasped, but her voice trembled with pain. "You need to save yourself." His chest tightened. "I'm not leaving you." He knelt beside her, cradling her head. The warmth of her blood seeped into his hands, and the sight shattered him. "Help is here. You have to hold on." "Please." She searched his eyes, fear mingling with something deeper, a flicker of trust. "You have to remember our connection. It's everything." Her words faded, breathing ragged. In that crucial moment, everything shifted again. Jasmine, fighting through the chaos, reached them, urgency in her eyes. "What can I do?" "Lily's hurt," Marcello shouted, desperation snapping his voice. Jasmine knelt, her strong hands working quickly. "We need to stop the bleeding," she commanded, ripping fabric from her own shirt to apply direct pressure. "Stay with us, Lily." "Why are you helping?" Marcello murmured, the rawness of the moment surfacing. "I fought." "Now's not the time," Jasmine snapped, urgency cutting through her words. "We have to focus." Sirens wailed in the distance, closing in, as Marcello felt the reality of their situation crashing down. Each moment felt like an eternity, but then Lily's eyes sparkled with something unforgettable. "We can change this, Marcello. You know we can." Marcello's heart twisted. "How can we? The congressman. Everything is falling apart." "I am, more than you realize," she whispered, eyes heavy. "Find the truth." A jolt rocked him. Find the truth. Wasn't that the very thing that had led him here? The thought echoed through him like a drumbeat. "Hold on, just keep talking," Marcello insisted, gripping her hand tighter. But the light in Lily's eyes dimmed, pain washing over her as her body grew limp. "Promise me." "Anything, just don't leave us," he cried, voice cracking. "Promise me you'll find out who I really am." Her voice trailed off, and Marcello felt his heart shatter. "Lily, no, no, stay with me!" Panic surged as her eyes fluttered, and silence draped around them like a thick fog. The alley erupted with urgency as paramedics arrived, rushing past law enforcement, shouting orders amidst the chaos. Marcello felt fear clawing deep, shaking him. "Help her, she's losing blood," he pleaded with the medics, desperation spilling from him. As they loaded Lily onto a stretcher, Jasmine stood at his side, determined. "We're not done fighting, Marcello. You have to stay strong. This isn't over." He nodded, a fierce determination igniting in his chest. "I will find the truth, Jasmine. I promise." The sounds of urgency echoed, but with every passing moment, a feeling of something greater started to stir inside him, a mix of hope and unyielding resilience. They would uncover the lies. They would fight for Lily, because the world was changing, and together they would break through the shadows that loomed. As the ambulance doors shut, Marcello felt a spark ignite inside him. He took a deep breath, determination wrapping around his heart like steel. This was only the beginning. But then a thought flashed. Untangling the web, finding out who he truly was. Wait, before we dive deeper into this journey, you need to subscribe now. Don't miss out on these exclusive stories. Hit that red button. Smash the like button to boost the algorithm. This is the moment to show your support. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories about what comes next. And please, share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to know this conclusion. Don't wait 1 second more to share. True fans know how vital it is to support the channel. Let's grow this community together.